Hello, everyone. So for this chapter, I'm going to be covering the speed, agility, and quickness training concepts. A lot of times we'll refer to this throughout the module as SAQs, just because I don't want to say speed, agility, quickness all the time. So I'm going out of the 7th edition of the book, which is chapter 19. I believe in the 6th edition, it is chapter 12. Don't quote me on that. Just so I can kind of progress through some of these for future classes. All right. So some of the little definitions. Okay, so speed. So speed is to move as fast as possible in one direction. Okay, pretty self-explanatory for the most part. Unless it's a really, really old movie, which was not really done very well. All right, agility. Agility is the ability to start, stop, and change direction in response to a stimulus. Okay, so you got to accelerate and decelerate with some kind of change of direction, which is very, very hard on the body, especially, and it can cause a lot of injury if not done appropriately, or if the body's not prepared for it. Especially the accelerate and the deceleration, mainly the stabilization, you see here, is really the hardest part. For your body to stabilize during that deceleration through a very, very quick motion is really rough on the body. And if not done well, you can get a lot of like chronic tendonitis, muscle strains, ligament tears or sprains. For example, just the cutting motion is the number one way to tear your ACL. So if you don't have that stabilization, the ability to change direction under control, can result in some pretty big injuries. Okay, and then quickness. Quickness is the ability to react to a stimulus and appropriately change the motion of the body in response to that stimulus. Okay, so about speed. So stride rate and stride length is going to vary obviously per person. A good like sprint coach can help out a lot on this. I'll cover a lot of it just vaguely, not overly in depth on some areas, as like the exact like sprinting motion involves a lot of different functions. And if you're like going to be a sprinter, you should definitely see a sprint coach for further explanations, just because they're going to tailor to you. But for the most part, for the mechanics, proper running mechanics enables maximal force generation through biomechanical efficiency and so forth. So usually on the front side, you're going to see a triple extension, okay? Hip extension, knee extension, and then plantar flexion, which is another form of extension, okay? And then the back side, you're going to see, that's the back side. The front side, you're going to see the triple flexion, okay, which is hip flexion, knee flexion, and dorsiflexion. Okay, the ankle kind of throws you off because they're both flexions. Okay. During the sprint motion, so the sprinting motion versus the jog or more of the endurance athlete run is very similar and also very different. Sprinters get their knees up higher. They have more of a forward bend during the sprinting motion. They're doing a greater range of motion in their lower body and upper body than runners do, just because they need all that momentum to more efficiently propel their body. Versus endurance athletes, they don't really need to get their knees up super high or get their feet up off the ground a lot. Okay, it's more of a glide. Both still do a forward lean. The sprinters' mechanics obviously is a little bit more of a forward lean. Pumping their arms is a little bit higher. Their hand height should be a little bit higher, almost at the nose level for sprinters. For joggers, not for joggers, for more the endurance athlete, it's lower. I believe it's just to the nipple line. Do a little bit more in depth on some of it. So the foot and ankle complex. So when sprinting forward, the foot and ankle should be point directly towards in a dorsiflex position. Excuse me. There's some slight deviations, for example, some foot external rotation that you can see. It's more, you're going to see it more for more multi-directional running and lateral shuffles. Some individuals just have this just because they They either have flat feet or they have just kind of like this little exaggerated external tibial rotation that happens. And some of it depends on shoes, just how their body is designed. It's not necessarily a bad thing. When you're getting more of like the competitive sprinting, it should be more of a straight ahead motion just for efficiency. But a lot of the athletes that I've witnessed that are more grass, like football, for example, they do have this slight foot external rotation just so they can grip the grass better. That I've seen. But if the foot are flat-footed or that their arch collapses, you will see that excessive kind of external rotation of the feet. Knee complex, so the knee should always be straight ahead over the knees. Sorry, the knees should be straight ahead facing the whatever direction you're running. Okay, your knee should always go in the direction. If you're changing directions, your knee should point in the direction you're going to change. Okay, you shouldn't have like a knock knee that valgus force. And then when you're running, if you ever see someone like running on a treadmill or you're directly in front of them while they're running towards you, their knees shouldn't deviate at all. It should just be straight ahead. And if they do deviate, then you have to address other issues such as foot mobility, instability, and hip as well, because those are the main factors. If the athlete demonstrates excessive adduction and internal rotation of the femur during the stance phase, it decreases force production and may lead to overuse injuries. There's a number of different ways that can cause overuse injuries, especially in running. Especially with the internal rotation of the femur during the stance phase can lead to a number of things. There will be a slight internal rotation, but nothing that you're going to notice. I'm talking sometimes there's usually maybe a 5-degree internal rotation of the femur, but nothing that you should really notice, because 5 degrees is like from here to there. Usually, it's not a lot. That's just for normal motion, but you shouldn't see a lot of it. If there's a lot of it, there's something else that's not right. Usually, it's a glute weakness or a tight adductors, which will result in that. So maybe you go back and reassess whoever you're working with. You're like, all right, let's address these issues before we get to the sprinting, because you're just going to cause worse issues down the road. The lumbopelvic hip complex. Okay, the body should have a slight forward lean. Okay, especially during acceleration. Even during distance running, there will be a forward lean. There should always be. It's even more so during sprinting, just because you need that almost falling forward motion, just to help you propel the momentum. If they're staying directly upright, that is not a very efficient run, whichever run you're doing. During maximal velocity, the LPHC should be fairly neutral without excessive extension or flexion, unless to reach for an object. So it should be pretty much essentially a flat back. Okay, when you're running, that's just very, very efficient for your body. You shouldn't have this excessive arching or flexion. Sometimes during distance running, you'll see kind of a hunched shoulders as a result. For those individuals, it's just very important to kind of overemphasize and address different issues of tightness in the chest and weakness in the upper to mid back for that. Head should always be remain in line with the rest of the back and the hips and the legs, especially as you see in this motion, there should be the straight line that happens right here. Okay, especially during sprinting. Your head shouldn't really deviate a lot unless you're looking for something, or you never know. Okay. All right. Agility. Training can enhance deceleration capabilities, dynamic flexibility, postural control, core strength, and proprioception. Yes, I agree. Quickness involves the ability to assess visual, auditory, kinetic stimulus, and to provide appropriate physical response as fast as possible. All right, so everyone likes working with athletic populations, but the non-athletic populations is pretty much the bigger root of the population that you'll see. So SAQ training provides a unique challenge to the biologic systems of non-athletic individuals, facilitating constant responses to adaptation. Such rapid adaptation to SAQ training is crucial in the development, maintenance, and improvement of physical function from childhood through a person's senior years. So the professional perform a comprehensive assessment to make sure they're ready and safe. SAQ should always follow appropriate warm-up, absolutely. Especially a pretty advanced warm-up, especially towards the end. That way they're more prepped and ready, their body's ready for it. Client should have a good base of physical fitness, muscular strength or flexibility prior to participation. Client should be progressed from slow, simple to fast and complex. A lot of the time you'll see, if you're working with like the general population that maybe used to be athletic, and you'll see like, hey, back in the day I used to run a 5-minute mile, or I used to be this and that, and I used to play these sports. I mean, that's great and all, but most of the time now they're not going to be in anywhere near the same type of shape. They have the right mentality, and you have to really kind of emphasize that. But you have a lot of people that used to be active way back in the day, and it's going to take a while to get them back up to a similar level. Not to bash on anyone. So youth guidelines are really, really important, especially to keep the youth active and prevent obesity, which is really bad for a youth. Biggest thing is really getting them outside. That way they're more involved. So SAQ training for youth, frequency 1 to 3 times a week, 4 to 8 drills at a time, 1 to 4 sets, 3 to 5 reps. For rest, about a minute, up to a minute or so. Okay, pretty much just have fun with them is what it is. So, for example, there's red light, green light, which we've all played back in the day, hopefully. There's even... So this is a video by NASM. So this is Katrina. So she emphasizes in youth exercise. She's a youth exercise specialist, which is another thing that you can get after you completing this course and getting your CPT if you want to. There's a bunch of different certifications. So this is in the module, so you can listen to it. I'm just going to go over it real brief. And she talks about how to utilize red light, green light in youth, and that's her daughter. And talk about different areas and some different modifications that she'll use. And just really just playing is all it is. Okay. You can go through the entire thing here. There's multiple ways of doing it. Follow the snake. This is another good one. So this one, okay, you just get a rope or whatever it is, and they very, very quickly try and trace it. You don't have to do this for youth. You can use it for any really population. This one I can see kind of fun, especially with other populations in general, especially like high school and like college. This is a nice, fun one to do. Interval training, okay, so the high intensity, short duration programs. There's HIIT. I also put some of the HIIT stuff into this module as well. SAQ drills, perfect for this population. Make sure that's appropriate. Client needs a comprehensive assessment prior to participation, mainly for safety. You don't want someone to go beyond the capabilities and result in injury. And just some of the circuits. There'll be a few circuits we'll mention right here. For example, like here's rope, and then a kind of cone shuffle. I'm not going to get too in-depth in some of these just because I don't want to waste a lot of time. I have you go over some of these on your own. But it's very detailed on what you should do. So here's like the 5-10-5 drill, which I'll show you here in a minute. Rest, and then there's a box drill, there's partner mirror drills. All these are pretty fun things to do. SAQ training for older adults. Okay, so exercise related to functions of your ADLs, or assisted daily livings. Safety is key for these types of clients, especially they're a real risk of falling and a resultant injury usually, in like osteoporosis. So you really got to keep all these things in mind, but keep it fun for them too. Clients need a comprehensive assessment as well, and here's a few for them. So inline 10 to 15 long. Place various size cones, hurdles, and other objects about 24 inches apart. Client lines up, faces sideways to the line of object. As they step over each object, they move down the line and then back to the start. Okay, and they're timed. So they're just stepping over items, which is really important for the kind of older population, just because this is usually where they're going to fall. Here's another one, stand up to figure 8. Okay, so they begin sitting in a chair. Okay, so 2 cones are placed directly in front of the chair, with the first 10 to 15 feet away. The second is placed 20 to 25 feet away, directly behind it. On the instructor's command, the client stands up from the chair as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible, they move to the left of the first cone, then to the right of the second cone, while turning around to come back to the chair to complete a figure 8. Okay, and then you just time it. Okay, some different kind of strategies. Okay, so depending on if it's your beginner, intermediate, or advanced, okay, it's for beginner, it's 4 to 6 drills with kind of limited inertia. Intermediate, it's 6 to 8 with greater horizontal inertia, and advanced is more 6 to 10 with maximal inertia. Okay, and the sets and reps you use appropriately. They don't change too much. Obviously, the more advanced, they get a little bit more rest time, which is also really, really important. Ladders. Ladders are great. You don't really need to go out and buy a ladder. You can try to use chalk on the concrete. You can tape off different areas. Whatever works. Ladders are great for SAQ work. There's a number of different ways you can cover ladder drills. I mean, they have the 1 ins and 2 ins, zigzags, side shuffle, or alley shuffle. In here, here's the 5-10-5 drill, which I actually didn't know before this, so I'll show it for you guys.
The Pro Agility Cone Drill is also known as the 5-10-5. The cones are marked off in a straight line, each 5 yards from the next, at a 0, 5, and 10-yard mark. The athlete straddles the middle cone with feet and hips shoulder-width apart. The athlete should keep his center of gravity low, with a slight bend in the back. The athlete turns and sprints to the left 5 yards, touches the cone or line with the left hand, and then turns back around and sprints 10 yards to the cone on the opposite end. The athlete touches that cone or line with the right hand and turns around a second time and sprints through the starting point.
So that is the 5-10-5 drill. Okay. Then there's modified box drills, just different jumpings. There's the T drill. You sprint up, side shuffle, karaoke the other direction, side shuffle back, and then back pedal. A number of different ways, and this require cones. Okay? And if you don't have a cone, towels, jerseys, number of different items, shoes, whatever it is. It's just easy, something to identify the spot. Okay. Excuse me. Here's another box drill. Okay, so you set up, you sprint 10 yards, side shuffle to left, back pedal, and then karaoke. And here's a left drill, which is use 10 yards, a little bit more advanced, a little bit longer. You sprint one way, back pedal, then side shuffle back, karaoke, sprint. Okay. And there's a number of different ones you can expand on. These are just some really good examples of good ones to use. You can get creative. If you're more related to a sport or a coach, you can do something a little bit more sport specific for you. By all means, there's a number of different ones. Soccer has a ton. Same as volleyball and basketball. So whatever you want to use is totally up to you. These are just good ones to start with, especially for some the youth populations or even some of the older populations. But some of these would be really fun to use for just elementary, middle school, high school. That can be fun. Have them compete against one another. Have a board of the records, so they can try and beat the records. Really, just make it fun. So that is the SAQ drills.